Hi, this is Dhruv.
And this is John.
And this is week 17 of the devlog. So I'm finally back, and before we begin, I'd just like to say to like and subscribe the video if you like it.
And if you see us on Facebook, also like us there, and also find us on YouTube, and also like us there, and also find us on Instagram and YouTube. Oh, yeah, I already said YouTube. And Instagram and Twitter, and also like us there. But yeah, so this week we will be talking about how to handle criticism. I think we mentioned it last week in my poor English, that handling criticism is part of the job of any creative industry. So I wanted to ask Dhruv, do you remember when we first released NEN on Steam Greenlight? And then at first it's going well, and then we started seeing some hate. What was the first thing that goes through your head when you see someone disagreeing with something you've worked on for a while?
I think for me, the first thing is, what is the thing that they're saying? Is there anything that is valid in what they're saying? I feel like back then, though, it was different. I think back then I didn't really have an idea of what, didn't really, I guess, analyze the criticism. But I think one thing that I look for, I guess nowadays, is seeing what is valid in the criticism and not seeing a solution. Like sometimes people will point out solutions to problems, but rather just seeing what they think is wrong.
I think it's a really important balance to know, to have some sort of pride in your own work and know the style that you're going for. But if you do that too much, it becomes kind of arrogant. So it's like a really good balance. Actually, I think Dhruv always been stroked me as someone who's does not respond emotionally when we say something. Oh, I don't like that and all that stuff. I think it's more like me. Hey, can you do this? And like, no, I don't want to do that. But it's more. I guess my question is more that the first time, like, let's say no, I have a better one. Let's say you're someone who is considered your friend. This is not design anymore. Someone who you thought was one of your friends or something comes up to Dhruv and say, hey, I don't think you should be doing this. I think you should do a normal job because I don't think the way you're doing it is worthy or not. These are criticism, or I would say even opinions, unwanted ones, but suggestions. And how do you respond in the past, and how would you respond now?
I think in the past, I don't know. I feel like in the past I would be very adamant, like, no, you're wrong. But I think now I'm more, I guess, used to it. So it would be more.
They've been doing that to you.
I mean, it's not like you've been doing it, but it's just that you kind of like get that like idea without people having to like necessarily say anything. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to. For example, let's say you are, I don't know, talking to someone and you say, yeah, this is like what I do, you can instantly see like a look of like confusion and like, oh, okay, so you're kind of not, like, maybe they don't understand what you're doing. Maybe it's just my perception of things, but that's what I've seen. And I think one thing I see is that a lot of people don't know what I would respond with is that I think a lot of people don't know about the process that goes into these things and the amount of, I guess, difference between one person and another when you're making these things. So when somebody says you should get a job, maybe that's them seeing it through their point of view, and maybe they're even trying to kind of help you, like say, oh, that this is kind of a waste of time because like you should be saving up for your future, for your retirement, whatever, right? And I guess that's a different point of view. Everybody's different, and I just don't think that way as much.
Right. It stems from goodwill.
Yeah, I like to think that it stems from goodwill.
Yeah. I think everybody, when they're giving suggestions, everybody is taking their own path that they think is right. So when someone is taking a path that's a little bit too foreign, they would try to give suggestions, having someone do your path, because everybody thinks they already thought out everything about their own. So I definitely think it's goodwill, but whether or not it's welcomed or needed is different. Actually, recently on 9gag, I saw a post that was someone who made a pretty good-looking game, and then asked if people liked it. And then one of the response, which is really good, is ask for suggestions but never ask for approval. So that's a pretty big difference. I think you never asked for whether or not this is good, but rather what can be done better. I think for me, for example, I would make a lot of things, and Dhruv or Matt would probably say something, oh, I don't like it, and all that stuff. And my first instinct, or usually what I think is whether or not I had a style and why I chose this, and whether or not the reasoning for me doing this sort of suggestion works or not. And there are times when Dhruv, Matt, and I just won't match. Like we'll all disagree with everything. And then in the end, I'll just go like, okay, well, since I'm doing the artist and I'm doing all the art, it would make sense for me to keep everything consistent with what I go. And I'll tell them that I feel like I will just take the shot and then just go with what this is. And I think that's what I would normally do. But in the past, I'm pretty sure you've noticed, and I don't take criticism that well because I do the same thing as you do. How do you know? When someone tells me, you should do this in order to make your company successful, you should do this. My first thought would be, how do you know? If you do the same thing, then I'm more likely to listen. If you don't, I don't know. I can just keep it on the side now.
Yeah, I feel like though if like somebody's experienced or has been successful in indie games or kind of is like on that same path, I would much likely be willing to take the suggestion because they know they've been through it, they know how hard it is and stuff. But I think a lot of people, indie games is a very different business than a lot of other businesses, and I think a lot of people ignore the fact that it's creative, and the fact that it's creative makes it almost like if you're doing a sport and you tell someone, hey, like you have to work out like 16 hours a day, that's not good because that means that they're going to be dead, like they won't be able to do the sport. Your body can only take so much. And I think the same thing applies with creativity. You have this this amount of creativity that you can have. When there's just grunt work to be done, it's really easy to get through it. We can do it so quickly because it's just grunt work. But when there's something that's like, hey, we need to design this, that might take a really, really long time just because we don't know the exact way to do it. So we have to kind of be very creative and figure it out. And your brain needs time to figure that out. It doesn't just happen like, oh yeah, I'm going to crank out 16 hours and then I'm going to come up with an amazing design.
Yeah. I think, and also now we've also started designing with focus. I don't think we've talked explicitly about. We might do it next time or something.
Yeah.
But now a lot of times when Dhruv and I come up with suggestions, we would say, does it follow the focus? If it doesn't, we'll just cut it out, and that tends to work. But following on your point, I definitely think like our most recent, one of our really close friends said, I don't like the way our jumping works for Eduardo, and because she thought it was very clunky. But to me, it felt very grounded, and I really like the fact that it's really, really realistic. So we end up taking it, and then not that the person's suggestion is bad or anything. It's just that's our style, and we'll stick to our style.
Yeah.
Well, that's about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for listening if you got this far. So this is Dhruv.
And this is John.
And we're signing off. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.